Okay, so I tried to do a live earlier and it cut off, but I really want to try again. We'll see how it goes. If it cuts off, it's no big deal, but kids are asleep in the car still. So I was like, oh, great opportunity to talk about this. So Cam did a video this morning talking about drugs and alcohol and why it's something that you've got to stop because it's stopping you in your process. It's keeping you from reaching your full potential. And I just wanted to quickly go over why I can definitely see how that would affect parenting. Like, I'm really starting to see it now because I'm kind of hitting the more difficult part of parenting, because Max is getting really effective in his vocabulary, but he also is like really coming into himself and like finding his will, developing his will in an environment where we're allowing him to do that fully. And then finding a point of compromise and agreement and support. And I'm talking about redefining the word compromise, right? It's not about one-sided compromise. It's really coming to an agreement together about what's going to happen and what we're going to accept and allow in our world. And then also doing that with 8-month-old Sunny in the picture too, who is now crawling and moving and wanting to stand up and do all this stuff. So my attention is being, and my attention and my focus is being needing to expand even more. So I just want to share a little bit. I have walked an extensive process of stopping drugs and alcohol, so it's not like I'm coming from a total a teetotaler attitude my whole life, right? It's not like I've it's something that I started very young when I was a teenager, and it got pretty heavy when I was, in my late teens and early 20s. And then it's been a process to walk myself out of that. And it's been many years now that I haven't had any drugs or alcohol. So I've had both sides of walking through that and really learning also like a lot about the reality of alcohol, the reality of drugs, and what we're not being told about that. Because we tend to think that, stopping drugs and alcohol is something that's really hard. And the reality is it's not hard to actually stop. What's more challenging is dealing with the mind. Like, our minds will tell us we can't stop. Our minds will tell us, oh, just a little bit more. And so I want to talk, and Cam talked about that really well in his video, so I highly recommend to go check it out. But yeah, so why should parents definitely stop using drugs and alcohol altogether? Because like, if you're a mom, especially if you stay at home, or even if you don't, like if you're working, I'm sure it's even more challenging. But like, there's a certain point in the day where like, and even for me, with all the points that I'm supporting myself with in process to like face irritation, face anger, face frustration, and all these points, like even for me, it's challenging to not let that stuff build up within myself. Like, because look, kids will challenge all aspects of the parts of yourself that you think that you've got yourself managed and held together. Because kids just want to like take out all their toys and throw them all over the house, all of them, like every puzzle they own, and throw it everywhere and mix them all together. And like, they don't understand that this glass vase or something like that can't be thrown on the floor, or they don't understand if they if they miss the toilet while they're peeing, that you're gonna have to clean it up, or they don't understand that like they can't leave the sink on, or all these kinds of things that they don't have context for, that you have to, as a parent, support them through and over time, and be patient. Like, and what I mean by patient is the willingness to walk a child through the reality of our world and the different contexts, and to support them with their vocabulary so that over time they'll understand you more and more. And you have to develop your vocabulary too. You have to develop yourself within that so that you can communicate back and forth and not be so angry and frustrated. But regardless, children will challenge the points within you where you think you have like yourself kept together. Like they will, I guess you could say, like people say push buttons, right? That's kind of how it is. So it would be very easy, and I understand the urge, I really do get it, to like build up all this frustration during the day, and then at the end of the day, like crack open a bottle of wine. And I know that that is a pattern among moms to like, oh, like, is it time yet? Is it 5 o'clock? Is it time for us to get the bottle of wine open because, man, I'm really ready? Or like joking, like, can we do it earlier? Can we have mimosas at brunch, you know, while we're out at brunch on a Sunday at noon or something like that, right? And it's like a joke. But the reality is it's revealing something about ourselves, which is parenting is challenging, and the opportunity to then suppress the feeling of frustration and irritation and convince yourself that no, I really do love my kid, but I really need to have a glass of wine in the evening to de-stress. Because the question is, like, why aren't you supporting yourself to do that without alcohol? Because alcohol doesn't actually de-stress you. What it does is you drink alcohol, a certain chemical reaction happens in your brains, and chemicals are released that make you feel good for a moment, and then it goes away, and you're actually left feeling kind of bad, like you actually did some abuse to your body. And we all know this. We can all be honest about that. No matter how many articles that come out saying that like alcohol is good for your heart and all this shit, we all know. Same thing with marijuana, like smoking marijuana, smoking weed, doing other kinds of drugs too. Like we all know the effect that this stuff has. If we're self-honest, we all know. But we tend to say, oh, we'll focus on the things that make us feel good about what we're doing and make us feel less guilty. But the guilt can actually be used, if you're feeling guilt, if you're experiencing that, the guilt can be used to check ourselves of like what we're not satisfied with in our lives and to make a change. Because the reality is, and having been someone who has used drugs and alcohol in the past, I can tell you, like, it is much cooler and like way more awesome to face myself and the irritation in the moment with my kid. So for example, if I'm feeling or walking through something where I have this like irritation building up towards my child, and I have some kind of like point where it's building up within me, I'm like, oh man, that exists within me. That's really awesome that I can like now support myself because I have the tools to do so, which is what we're talking about in Destiny, is reprogramming myself so that the irritation doesn't exist, so that it does not come up anymore, ever. Like, don't you actually want that for yourself, to feel like cool and calm actually in every situation where your kids, you don't actually get triggered by your children doing something? You can just be straightforward and direct with them and talk with them. And it doesn't mean you have to like just lay back and let them do whatever. That's not the point. That's the opposite polarity, right? That's actually, I would imagine, like that's what you would do if you were smoking weed all the time. You'd just be like, whatever, like that's the attitude, right? But instead of using the alcohol or smoking pot to suppress the irritation, to suppress the anger, to suppress the feeling of like, oh, some kid has taken over my life and I don't get to be myself, I don't get to be free, like that is really not facing ourselves and supporting ourselves. Because if we do the more difficult and painful thing, which is, and it is painful, it's painful to face ourselves as what we exist as in this moment, rather than drinking to suppress it, rather than smoking pot to suppress it, to depress it, to depress it, to suppress it. When we actually face ourselves and we support ourselves to remove these patterns of thinking, to remove these addictions to feeling good within ourselves, and we're just here and we can express ourselves, like it's such a more powerful position. That's real empowerment, right? It's not just get to do whatever you want, because what you want isn't necessarily always what's best for you. So like getting just to drink in the evenings, like, and I know it's a difficult point, because I've had people tell me, you know, like, don't judge. Like, don't judge another person for their for wanting to drink in the evening. Like, let them just do that. And the thing is, I'm not judging. Like, I'm just looking and sharing with you what I see very few people actually being honest and sharing, which is that alcohol and drugs are used to suppress feelings and emotions and thoughts that you're participating in the day that get to a boiling point, that then you feel like, oh, if I could just have a drink, like, oh, just one bottle of wine, like that would make me feel so much better. And here's the other aspect of this that people aren't really considering. I see very few people actually really looking at this, is that your kid is seeing you do this. Even if you do it when they're asleep, like, your kid knows